What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Radical Roots podcast, where we dig deep to reach high. And of course, it's always progress through action. I'm your co host, Payron Baxter.
I'm your co-host Ram Sandoval.
And Rom, we are now 589 days away from midterms. I mean, that's just a hop, skip, and a jump.
Well, it sounds like a long time, but it's yeah, 2026. Is next year, right? So people need to start knowing who the candidates are, and really people like us need to start knowing who those candidates are as well, right? So so we
That's
can
right.
figure out who's the best for us and the community and the people within their own communities, right? So
That's right. That's
we don't
right.
have time
And
to mess around this time, and we know what we want to see.
yeah, I mean, the good thing is, I think there is a lot of natural energy right now that has really risen up. A lot of green shoots that are sticking up out of the dirt that are folks were like, hey, I never got involved like today. We'll talk about in a second. But, we had our precinct meeting that you signed up to be a precinct chair here in Union County. And there was new people in your precinct, if I'm not correct, right?
Yeah, I don't
They're
think it was
showing up.
organized last
Okay.
year. So
Wow.
yeah, there was one new. Actually, there was three new people. So yeah, and
Mm,
then one vet, right? So
there
uh,
you go.
and yeah, I was happy to get it organized. I had like 10 people, but then I found out a few were unaffiliated. But yeah, I didn't even know what a precinct chair was until I came to the Democratic meeting in November. That you were speaking at,
Yeah.
and I was like, well, all right, that I can do. And so, yeah, I'm doing it.
It was a great event. It was a great event. There's a lot of great energy in the room. Folks were, engaged. I mean, at a certain point, I was like, I couldn't even hear myself talk because folks were too busy organizing. Folks were too busy talking about what's going on in their community on the street. That street lights down. We need to get a committee together. We need to get that pothole fixed. We need to go to the school board meeting. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the energy that we're looking for. So it was just honestly an amazing event. We had our upcoming chair, Jen Sanders, there. I mean, again, I'm going to put in quotations because, she still needs to be voted in.
Mhm.
But I feel pretty good. She's going to be the chair. And I've known Jen for a long while. And I think folks are very animated in this moment to, of course, this is a time of change. And my short right now is Shirley Chisholm running for president in 1972, a catalyst for change. That is exactly what's happening right now. Folks want to see something different. Folks don't want to see the old roll over and die, as James Carville said. They said, "I want to stand up and live." Right. So I thought that was a really great event. And folks out there, if you can't tell by my velvety tones today, I'm coming down with some allergies, and it's making my throshal region a little bit sore. So if you see me sipping water more often than I usually do, that's why. But either way, we're gonna get into it because we have an amazing guest today. If you've been following us on the social medias, you know what's going on. The paparazzo has been all over the place, taking pictures of what's going on. Hey, when she's coming on the show? Rom, do you want to introduce our amazing guest?
Yeah, so we have the North Carolina State Senator Woodson Bradley. So she is over in the Charlotte Mecklenburg County. And
Woo.
I actually had the opportunity actually, the first time I canvassed in North Carolina was I was canvassing for her and Nicole Sidman, who were popular races. This was like right after Harris became the nominee, so I had their
Crazy,
material,
crazy energy.
and I also had the opportunity to meet her during another campaign event. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and bring her right on in.
Bring her
Uh,
on in.
thank you for
There she is.
thank you for joining us, Woodson, Senator Woodson Bradley. I should say,
Senator
I
Woodson.
this is
You have to salute her when
I'm
you
this
speak
is
with
kind of
her.
yeah.
You do not.
Yeah, I got to get used to the proper names, but yes,
No, I'm Woodson. I'll always be Woodson.
Well, welcome, welcome. Good to see
Thank you.
you.
And thank you for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
We're glad to
absolutely.
have you. I think it's good to, as we were talking to before the show started, our show was always meant to create, to hopefully connect people with the politics. Folks don't realize that politics is driven by the people. So the more we connect those things, hopefully they'll get involved and actually be a part of the political process, right? So thank you for coming on and putting it to where the goats can get it. We're simple. people can understand it in a way where it's like, hey, you know what? Not all this 19-point bullet points and graphs and all that stuff. Like, just talk to us like people. Talk to us like people. Let us know what's
I
going on.
love that. That's my whole campaign. That's the only way I know how to be. That's
There
who
you
I
go.
am, out and about. And people are starved for realness. So all of you listening, I'm just here to tell you that that's what people want to know is just how do you feel about things? And that's where you take the people that are representing you to task, especially grassroots. What y'all are doing and how you're growing is just absolutely phenomenal. I'm stoked to be here.
Awesome. Well, glad to
Well,
have
thank you.
you. So, could you introduce yourself a little bit for the people that might not be from around here or know who you are? I know you
We
had,
have we have listeners from all over Woodson. I mean, they're from. I mean, there's some folks from outer space too. So I mean,
uh, but we have a lot locally. But I know you had one of the most closest races in the country, and definitely here in North Carolina, and it came down to the wire. But yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'd be happy to. So, I am just a regular person. Running for office was never in my periphery. It wasn't on my bingo card, yet here I am. I am the daughter of a public school teacher and a social worker who went into law enforcement. That was my dad. My mom was a public school teacher, and the town I'm from, I am a rural kid. I'm a little country mouse that somehow made her way to the state house. That's what I tell people. And in the little town where I had my mom three times in high school, to just give
oh,
you a little idea of where I'm from. But I came to Charlotte almost 25 years ago. It was the big city. It was not the city that it looks like now, but back then it really was. It was a city that was growing. There was opportunity, and so I came down here. I have always been a small business owner. I was in the real estate business. Um, I was a teacher right out of school, just briefly, even though that isn't what I went to college for. I just love teaching. And having said that, being a small business owner in a city that was growing like Charlotte was, where all of a sudden there was this explosion of activity from the airport to banking to professional sports teams, and the list goes on and on. But all of a sudden, because of what we did in public education when I was a kid, all of a sudden Charlotte became just a powder keg in a good way for business. And we became the number one state in business. And those two things go hand in hand. We're going to talk about that tonight, especially the dismantling of public education and watching business us fall off the business ladder. But having said that, I never lost those hometown roots where I'm from. I'm very proud to be an example that it doesn't matter where you're from to want to go somewhere different or maybe change your family history or create something for yourself. But I see opportunity getting squandered now by what's happening politically, and I won't stand for it. So I've been a big, loud voice in the community for 20 plus years. I'm a domestic violence survivor. Um, my story is not pretty. It's a bad country song, but it has a really great ending. And that's the way I focus on my life. And so, yeah, I'm human. I'm real. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I have a blended family now. And I had to fight like hell to get in the room where these decisions are being made. And I found out the hard way that Raleigh, North Carolina, the North Carolina General Assembly, affects your daily life in North Carolina more than any other vote that you cast. And nobody, including myself, I'm insulting myself. I had no idea who the players were up there. And the more I found out and peeled the onion back, I did everything I could to get in that room where these policies were being made. And here I am.
Oh. And I know this week you actually had given a speech in the assembly, and I think it was related to or it came about from HB 5, which we talked about on Wednesday, which is basically the constitutional carry bill to North Carolina to give anyone the right to carry um, concealed carry in
yeah,
North
like
Carolina.
that's their language, constitutional carry, which makes it seem it's all normal. It's in the Constitution. Constitution. I mean, the Constitution in front of anything, right? Constitutional car. Like, what are you talking about?
But I know when Payron and I talked about it, we were talking about it from a perspective of, people with inexperience with guns, children, really just leaving, guns around and just things that people should know, if you're going to own a gun, you should know the laws, right? You should know when you can and cannot shoot and when you will be held liable. But you gave a perspective that didn't cross my mind at the time, and I think your perspective as a woman or any victim of domestic violence, it really highlighted something. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Be happy to. And I was very honored that the Senate caucus, the Democratic Senate caucus, asked me to be the voice of reason on this bill. And I'm going to share with you guys, I have a concealed carry permit. I got my hunter safety card when I was 10. The world of gun legislation looked very different back in the day than from what it looks like now. But I talked about the steps I went through to get that permit. The Senate floor, so it's House Bill 5, it's Senate Bill 50, but it's the constitutional carry bill. So when it was presented to Senate floor, it was presented for domestic violence survivors to have an avenue to protect themselves. That, honest to goodness, is how it was rolled out.
Mm.
And being married to a cop now, being the daughter of law enforcement and the granddaughter of law enforcement, a gun owner, a responsible gun owner, and to hear them say that and then turn around and do what they did. And here's what happened. So before I spoke, I gave the big floor speech, but Senator Muhammad, also from Mecklenburg, gave a speech saying that he felt that this was reckless for law enforcement and that law enforcement officers were going to die in the line of duty, and that we need to up their family rewards that they get for being killed in the line of duty, and also scholarships for their children. So he presents these two amendments to the constitutional carry as a direct result of law enforcement officers more than likely perishing in the line of duty is because of this bill. And the Senate unanimously voted, including the Republicans, they unanimously, instantly voted to support this bill. So to me, that said, okay, they're acknowledging that this is crazy and kind of dangerous. So then I presented my case as a domestic violence survivor. I referenced the domestic violence victims that they were talking to at the introduction of the bill. And I said, if a DVPO is in place, that's a domestic violence protective order, and it's basically like a restraining order, but specifically for domestic violence instances in North Carolina. I said, so if a DVPO is in place, I would like to present an amendment to the constitutional carry that's going to pass, and that a domestic violence abuser cannot possess nor purchase a firearm while under this protective order. And before I finished my sentence, Senator Britt jumped on his microphone, wanted to table the amendment, and then they called an instant vote by the opposition party, and all 28 of them in there voted no on that bill. They publicly sided with abusers, that domestic violence abusers should be able to keep their weapons and be able to purchase weapons while under a domestic violence protective order. I
Wow.
literally was gutted like a fish in
Mm.
front of the entire North Carolina Senate. And that was on my way home to Charlotte that night was when I made that video that has since gone viral. And I just said, this is what's going on. That officially guns have more rights than women, guns have more rights than children, guns have more rights than people in abusive households. And this is the Wild West. And we need to know exactly where it is that we're living right now. And as a responsible firearms owner, this is reckless. This is
Yeah,
absolutely reckless.
yeah, it does. It really doesn't make sense to me why anyone really, but especially law enforcement, would want to see people who may be unqualified, may be criminal, domestic abusers to have guns, weapons, and I think it's a scary precedent, it's a scary thought. And I don't know if you saw where this week or this past week where the Department of Justice, Trump's Department of Justice, is also looking to give felons or people who have been banned from having guns to give their guns back. I don't know if you've seen that.
citing Mel Gibson as
Oh,
one of their leading people because you guys remember he actually abused his I don't know if his girlfriend or wife at the time while she was holding a baby, and he got his gun
yes.
rights revoked. So this is, just to add on to Rom's question, I think as you're in the kind of milieu of the of Congress and in the Senate, like what in your I mean in your opinion does this say about the moment that we're living in? We're like there's folks that are actively siding with murderous abusers. I mean, let's be honest, like if you have a gun and you are choosing to harm someone with that gun, you're not trying to just injure them with the gun, right? These things they usually end extremely
To
fatal,
kill.
either harming, a significant other, a husband, or themselves. What does it say about the moment that we're in?
Those at the moment that we're in, the people that have the majority of political power are not in touch with the majority of people. And if this isn't the biggest wake up call ever to stop the apathy, to get off the sidelines, that your voice matters, you beat them at the ballot box, you start paying attention. Like when people tell me that they're not into politics, I go, I understand. I used to feel that way, but politics is in you. Whether you're paying attention or not, politics are what are dictating where you live, how much money you make, the rights that you have, the health care is available to you, now public safety, now whether your children are safe in different situations. Like, oh, it's in you. So I think you need to start paying attention. And I say that with love. I say that as a friend. I say that as an advocate because I am being inundated with people saying, I might have voted for this or I might have voted for that, but I most certainly didn't sign up for what I'm seeing right now. And I think that's the harsh reality of where we are. And so people need to wake up and they need to use their voice, and we're seeing it happen. Having said that, there's a reason why town halls are now done virtually or with empty chairs, or that people of a certain political ilk are not coming out of their homes because it's wildly unpopular. And people are realizing that it is wildly cruel on a level that we've never seen before. And so, if that's what it took to wake up the world, largely that was awake, but we had this small margin of people that tilted it over to one side. And I don't think that it was completely done intentionally, but now these are the people we've got to wrap our arms around and help re educate them into what got us where we are, where we need to go, make a plan. And I really feel that you're getting ready to see us on the edge of one of the most massive public shifts that the American culture has ever seen. It's going to go one way or the other. There's not going to be any in between. And I feel like we're going to come back to some sort of decency because none of us were prepared for how fast this sweater was going to unravel. And it's what, been 2 months? I feel like I've aged 20 years since January
Yeah.
the 20th. But
Right, right.
yeah, this is happening at warp speed. But no, it's very, very hard to comfort someone right now who is terrified.
Yeah, I
It
think.
is, it is, it's just awful.
Yeah, and I think issue like like the one we just discussed, there it used to be a bipartisan agreement that violent criminals and domestic abusers would not have guns, and I think North Carolina. I mean, there's so much going on in North Carolina. Coming from Illinois, where I was able to take things for granted, but North Carolina is almost like a battleground state, not just in terms of electoral votes, but the issues that are facing the country. And I think what happens here can kind of sway what happens in some of the other states, especially what we know that's going on with the Supreme Court Justice Allison Riggs, and how the Republicans are currently trying to wipe away 60,000 votes. And I think it's a critical time. The way that I feel is like we're on the front lines of defending democracy, because the states, a lot happens in states, and what happens here can trickle over to other states, similar purple states. So I think the world, at least the country, is watching North Carolina with a microscope. Um, so
I
mhm.
just to add to that, I think Someone asked me this during our precinct convention about like the Allison Riggs stuff and some of these other things, and I just want to remind them. And I'm very studious. I read a lot of books. I study a lot of history and sociology and things of that nature. But I just want to remind them that I thoroughly believe that this is an ongoing march from the January 6th insurrection. I think we need to acknowledge that we are living through a moment where one party has a clear vision of where they want this country to go backwards, and the other party is, I don't know if they're ready for this moment, right? To understand what is going on and those things. So when I break it down that way, of the idea of like what happened in Florida with Ron DeSantis firing district attorneys, right? What happened with Janet Protasiewicz in Wisconsin? What's also going on with Wisconsin? What's going on in Wisconsin right now with the current Supreme Court race? Where Elon Musk has dumped over $100 million for that right wing extremist. You know, what Griffin's doing here in North Carolina, we have to, because until we acknowledge it, that if we don't acknowledge it, then we can't resist it. I thoroughly believe that. As James Baldwin said, you can't change everything you face, but you can't change anything until it is faced, right? So we have to face these things. We have to call it what it is, because if you can't name something, you can't shame something. You can't change something, you can't change something. So we got to change these things by identifying what's going on. And if we're just saying, oh, of course, Republicans be Republicans, and well, what does that mean? What is the end goal? I mean, if we're not saying, okay, I thoroughly believe we are in a fascist moment, and depending on who you ask in this country, America's always been a fascist country since folks came to these shores 400 years ago, right? Depending on where you were on that ladder, it was a fascist country. For Black people, we've only had the right to vote less than my mom's been alive. She was born in 1962. Black people didn't get the right to vote fully until 1965, until she was 3 years old, the same age as my daughter. So I couldn't imagine my grandparents, who I loved, and they both passed. They weren't full citizens in this country. They weren't full citizens. My grandfather, shed blood for this country. He fought in the Korean War. My grandmother scrubbed floors her whole life, and ended up working in dietary at a hospital, and that's where she ended up finishing her career, or her work life. So I guess I'm saying all this to say that we have to understand there's one group of people that want to go back to that time where my grandparents were not full citizens, and the rest of us who want to live in a multicultural, multiracial, pluralistic society where everybody has the same rights, privileges, and protections under the U.S. Constitution. So it's that versus manifest destiny, and which one's going to win? And if we're not going to be honest about that, because we're trying to appeal to the people, because something you said earlier, Woodson, I kind of want to slightly push back on. I brought this up in our last episode where Ron was like, I don't know if he said it or someone else has said it, to be honest, but I'm going to use Ron as a stand-in because he's my co-host. But he said that, the idea that like, well, they didn't vote for that. They voted for this, they didn't vote for that.
I said that.
What do you want? What do you want me what do you want me as a Black man to do with that? Right? Because I heard Trump say, I will let police officers kill me. And they cheered for that. They heard Trump say, I'm going to mass deportations now. They cheered for that. Then they end up losing their job, or they end up losing their health care. They end up losing their social security. And all of a sudden it's like, we got to wrap our arms around them. They were cool with me dying. They were cool with my children being killed by police, like Tamir Rice at 12 years old, being killed within 2 seconds. Right. So there's a level of like, there's this, I think, for Black folks who did show up extremely high for the Democratic Party, within our percentages within the electorate, this idea that like we're always told to have this like Herculean benevolence to white violence. And when I go back to January 6th, we can't forget January 6th was a very violent, racist, sexist, misogynistic, homophobic event, right? And that these are just the small subsidiaries of it. So my only pushback to that was the idea of like, we got to embrace these people. I'm like, well, who's the we? Because for me, it's dangerous. I live in Union County where they still have a Confederate monument outside the courthouse. So for me to embrace people that don't see me as a full human and don't want me to have the same rights, privileges, and protection of the U.S. Constitution is a bit far. Hence why I think we're seeing a lot of these folks, especially Black women, saying like the 92%, they're going to step back because it's not safe for us. And we know it's not safe for us. So I guess when you say that, if you could maybe expand on that, the idea of we embrace them, who is the we?
Absolutely. And this is so awesome. This is what we need to talk about, because here's the problem. You've got the Democratic Party with this giant tent. You've got progressives.
Hmm.
You've got liberals, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's not a bad word. Liberals are great. You've got yellow dog Democrats. You've got old school blue dog Democrats. There are a few of them left. And then you've got people that are categorized as moderates. They might be a little bit, they might lean a little more business minded, but definitely socially, culturally, equality, like they're all on board. And then you've got conservatives. You've got the MAGA, which really is absolutely, I have nothing to offer in conjunction with them. I don't, there's nothing to identify with. And then you have people that I think they consider themselves Reagan conservatives, which I'm not there. And
Yeah.
then you've got, because that was the beginning of this whole
No
trajectory.
question. Right,
And
right.
then you have people that are conservatives. And here's where I'm talking. Here's where we make gains. And just let me lean into this. You
Take your
have
time.
people, and this is the margin that cost us the election. These are people that were either raised in a Republican household or raised to believe that conservative values are, I don't want to say superior, but I'm going to use the word superior. They
Yeah.
believe that they are held to a higher standard. I mean, they
Right.
do. I'm
Right.
just,
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Oh, I know.
And a lot of these people are now in marriages or in
Mm,
families where someone else is further to the right. So
mm.
here are these people on the edge that are just, when they disagree, they get smacked down. When they go to church, they are told that to be a Democrat or a liberal is just worse than any slur you could imagine. I mean, I'm serious. Like, this is
Oh, I
what
know.
they're
Hmm.
ingrained with.
Hmm.
And their party has left them.
Mm.
And that is the margin that cost us everything. Because up until this election, those unaffiliated, those people that were not one way or the other, that entire group leaned left. And this year we saw that they 60% almost broke right. And here's where I'm saying. So I'm not talking about all of them. I'm talking about this small margin that belongs with us, that believe what we believe, but they might not control the news channel that's being played in their home. Seriously, like the information that is coming into them, they don't control that channel. And I can get, there are thousands of examples of this, but their party has left them. And so when I speak to them, I go, you've been betrayed. Your party has left you. I cannot imagine what that would feel like, because I haven't had that happen with the Democratic Party. I haven't. But I try to give them a soft place to fall, because when they see us coming and everybody has a right to feel how they feel. Just understand, we've got to have the progressives. This oligarchy tour that is going on by AOC and Bernie, it is needed and it is valid. We have to have true blue Democrats going and stop talking about the middle class. We're
Yeah.
talking about hard working
The working
people.
class. That's right. Yep.
I just call them hardworking people. I hate the
Hmm.
word class because it can be taken but do you see what I'm saying? The other
Yeah.
side takes innocuous words. But
Hmm.
then when
Hmm.
it comes to the unaffiliated, this is what I say. And I can do this because people, for whatever reason, they receive it from me.
Hmm.
And I just go, look, y'all have been abandoned. You're basically homeless by political ideologies, and you've been betrayed. And so I think you need to take a look at what we're doing. We believe in safety and security. Those are the two words that get that almost like a puppy go, huh? When
Hmm.
you say safety and security, and this is where I'm going with what I was saying, give them this much grace to tune back in to our message, because somewhere along the way we lost them. Safety and security can be financial safety and security. It can be your health care safety and security. It can be your physical being, what you're talking about, whether or not you are safe and secure in the United States, depending on what you look like. It can be about your job. It can be about housing. It can be about your retirement. But those two words to that subsect of people, get them to go, you're not radical. Because, see, they've been indoctrinated in such a way that we need to kind of take the scales off their eyes, for lack of a better expression, and be like, we're not radical. We truly care. We have solutions. We can beat any argument you have economically, socially, culturally, historically. And now they go, okay, let's start talking. So I love the fact that you push back on that, and rightfully so, because the vast majority of them are on that train that is very scary. And you should be scared. We should all be scared. But if we can get that margin back and get them back with us, because there are a few of them that, because of where they went to church and because of the conversations in their community clubhouse and because of who is controlling the narrative in their homes.
Mm,
I'm
mm,
just saying, don't give them grace. They got to own what they did.
mm,
So, mhm.
But some of them were being controlled in a way that now all of a sudden it's like they're looking for fresh air. And if we come at them with, I told you so, they're gone. I mean, think about it. Somebody told you, somebody tells me I told you so. I don't tend to listen to them. But we have a right to feel the angst that we do, but we've got to let a subset of us go over
Yeah,
and
that's
kind
true.
of be the nomads to bring them back where they belong.
Yeah,
So
you said a lot of things that I that I agree with or think at least resonates, and probably things Payron's heard me say.
mhm,
I've considered myself a moderate most of my life, but what I've realized is that the spectrum has moved. What would be
sure
considered
has.
moderate, 10, 15 years ago is now radical, and I don't think it's that radical. Even our show's called Radical Roots, and I don't think we're that radical, the things we're saying. But I've always said, there's this 5 to 10% that's kind of in the
Yep.
middle and that can be captured, which the pendulum has swings. It always seems to swing, and it seems that we're banking on that. But I think I became disillusioned with this last election, especially as because Kamala Harris was pretty moderate, and even towards the
It's
end,
amazing.
uh,
I
I
mean,
thought she ran a great
I
campaign,
am all
but
in.
I think she got a little hawkish towards the DNC and certain things she was saying and kind of capturing Liz Cheney vote, and those type of that type of audience. And I was drinking the Kool-Aid like it's gonna work, and it didn't in a big
Yeah.
way. And I've talked to some people, I knocked doors, and there's 30% of the nation that doesn't actually vote. And I know this sounds idealistic, and we always say, well, these aren't reliable voters. But when we look at what Trump did in the past decade, he brought in new voters. He actually was able to bring in people who haven't historically voted because he got a message right. And I think that's actually something that we can learn from, is to figure out, okay, well, what is this message? And I think you touched on part of that message, right? Hardworking people and the things that matter. Really, at this point, I think we need to simplify the message, right? We try to,
Yep.
because if we can simplify it and make it broad and diverse and have diverse set of applications without getting into like every single part of the tent, because you talked about progressives and liberal. I don't even know what I am, to be
We
honest.
need them
Like
all.
you know what, I feel like I'm a good person, and I want to see people, the most vulnerable people, the people who need help and assistance. I want to see those people. Like I told Payron, yeah, things will affect me and at some point, somewhere or another. But I'm not the one that's, well, I don't know, knock on wood, right? But there's people being affected right as we speak, right? And those are the
Yes.
most vulnerable people. And I'm in a place of privilege into which, you know, and I used to talk about the middle class, and even when I was talking when our first episodes, I was talking about how Harris came up with a plan for Black Latino to start businesses and buy a house, and Payron's like, but Rom, like that's not even in reach for some of these people. Like people aren't really, they can't afford to think about those things right now. It doesn't sound realistic. And I thought about it. And I remember talking to a woman who was bartending, and she was like, I don't fit. She's like, I'm voting for Harris, but they're not talking about me. They're not talking about the working poor. She called herself the working poor. She's like, they're not talking to me. And I said, damn, she's right. They're always talking about the middle class, the middle class. And so, I like that you mentioned those things as well.
Hardworking
But
people, safety and security. And the minute the other side says waste, fraud, and abuse, I go, oh, I'm sorry. I see you as the party of tariffs, taxes, and terminations.
there we go.
there you go. There you go. That's great.
That's
Yeah,
all I
no,
see.
no,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right.
So,
I said
so
that
it
on the
takes
episode.
all of us on our side to bring not only coalesce together, but these wandering sheep to just grab the few, because I
But but but
promise you
but
that little margin, we
I
need them
don't know.
back in the
We need them
world we're
back. We need
facing right
both.
now.
And
well,
yeah,
well, well,
We need both.
well,
That's what I'm saying.
but Payron, before you get just thought you did
yeah,
say
yeah, go-
you know, you need to allow the latitude for a segment of folks, or you know, to try to capture that. And to Payron's point, Payron, you always say, well, I'm not talking to these people, and that's like, and I think that's fair. Like you, like, and
Damn
so we
that.
both have a mission, right? And I think that that's ultimately how do we get a message that actually applies to both groups, right? So sorry, Payron, I didn't want to cut you
No,
off
no.
there.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I just again historically, especially in this country, the phrase safety and security has been used to allow a lot of atrocities to happen. Right? It's been allowed
Exactly.
to keep enslavement going. Safety and security has been
Ugh.
allowed to not allow women to vote. Safety and
Mm,
security has been allowed to cast dirty wars. Safety and security has been allowed to mass intern people like the Japanese. Safety and security has been used to, harm LGBTQ people. So I'm just saying, like, there's a level, and that's why they're eating the cats and dogs worked,
mm.
right?
Well,
It's
That's why,
unbelievable.
because it's safety and security of your pets.
in the
People are
But that's
putting.
why we take it back.
well, the sign. I remember
I mean, take it.
the signs over here in our area. Trump safety, Harris
Power,
crime. Yeah, it was like
violence,
violent. Yeah, it
crime,
was, you
right?
know. So I
Because I
don't know
mean,
how we take
because
it
they're
back, but
purchasing right? Because I mean,
because
I
That's
think
the
that
not
they're
taking
Democrats
it
are
back.
always on defense in general, and I say that broadly on a national level. But like,
right.
yeah, let's figure that out.
I guess, and then to that point, Rama, the idea of Democrats being on defense, I thoroughly agree with that. And I was talking to our potential new chair today, and she was bringing up the idea of like, oh, seeing what the Republicans are doing, and I mean that's the level of like understanding them. I'm like, but while we're doing that, all of us only have 24 hours in a day, right? All of us only have a certain amount of time that we can do things. But if we're not doing the things to turn on our voters or our potential voters, right? Because this past election, a lot of folks stayed home. 90 million folks
Yeah.
stayed home. They just didn't vote. America really, honestly, has some of the lowest voter turnout of any developed country. It's actually pretty abysmal. We've never broke 67% in our entire country's history, which is shameful.
It's true.
Um, so it's just this idea of that's what keeps this whole idea of like both these parties are in the lesser of two evils, right? So I think if there was I hope if the party could take this stance of like, what do we stand for? Not what, oh, that's what MAGA's doing and we're against that, because
Yeah.
that's it's sucked up at the same time of like, well, they're taking away this, which they are, then they're cutting that and they're harming these people and those people. All that is true. But what do we stand for? What principles do we stand on? What are we fighting for? Because if we talk about what we're fighting for, then the people will then follow. And guess what? Those middle of the ground folks that y'all kept talking about, those just start to realize, well, hold on, my Uncle Johnny, he's talking a little different way, but now he's going over that way. Now I'm going to go, right? And the idea of kind of like consolidating your base and standing on principles, I think will get us further ahead rather than being this kind of be all, because once you're everything to everybody, you're nobody to nobody, right? So like this
Yeah.
idea of like hopefully expanding the tent, because the idea, I think I said to when we had Dr. Kim Hardy on, I was like, what is the Democratic Party? The Democratic Party is a political party, right? It's not, we're not a community, we're not a family, which is okay, because we want to have power to have legislation to be able to help the citizens of this country, right? That's what a political party does, hopefully, to get in the power to do those things. Now, the Republican Party is extremely homogeneous. They're extremely they're white men, predominantly over 90% are white. If you start to include white coding
Mhm.
Latinos,
Yeah.
elected people, but then also the base, right? The base of the party isn't, and they're overwhelmingly white people, right? Now our party, it's an umbrella of a bunch of different communities. You have the black community, you have Latino community,
Which is
everybody
how I
else that
think of
isn't white folks,
America. Yeah.
right? Right. Everybody else plus white people, right? So
Right.
this idea of like we're all on one note, we're not all on one note, right?
Mhm.
Because we know that us as black people, we live shorter lives due to systemic racism, which you don't, right? So this idea of understanding where our intersections are as Americans, I think is important when we try to have a strategy of saying what principles do we stand on?
Yeah.
Because if we say we want all people to have this, guess what? That's going to appeal to me as a black man. That's going to appeal to you as a white one. It's going to appeal to someone as a Latino person. But well, hold on a second, or someone as a queer person, someone is differently able, someone that is an elder, someone that is young. But hold on, they're for whatever the progressive thing may be, and we can get into like those definitions. But like I think at the end of the day, what are our principles? Because if
Mhm.
we're just reacting and saying these people are crazy, we're never saying what we're standing for and how that's going to impact people.
I think
What we need to
um,
say. and I believe this with all my heart. My campaign, everything I tied back to the economy, because in my math, that's what mattered to people. But what's funny is that's what matters to a lot of people.
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
think 3 words we need to take back as a party is this: opportunity, prosperity, freedom. Now, don't recoil on those, because those words, those 3 words, are truly what our party is about. Their party right now, what we're seeing in Washington, what we're seeing in North Carolina politics, is the biggest government overreach I've ever seen. They
No
are
question.
in my bedroom, they're in my bathroom, they're in
Yep.
my doctor's examination room,
That's
they're in
right.
my dressing room at
Mm.
Dillard's down the street. They're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to take the word freedom back, because we
Mm-hmm.
are the party of freedom, free thinking,
Free speech.
opportunity.
Freedom to
I'm
be who you
serious.
are, right?
Uh,
Freedom to travel,
to
freedom to
be,
right, to be, right.
And I think
freedom to
you're
live, to be. So
I,
then opportunity. We are the land of opportunity, and they have squandered that from us, whether it's the oligarchy, monopolies. Like, small business should be able to thrive. I loved in the national campaigns of really trying to make things better for small business owners, the backbone of entrepreneurship, but also for hard working people. We're the ones that deserve opportunity. What we saw coming out of World War II was the biggest economic boom that has ever been. And it was hardworking people that had just come back from war, just got off the supply lines, just came to this country for a better life. And we saw this boom. And that's what we need to remind people of. So we've got freedom, we've got opportunity, and prosperity. Prosperity is not for one homogeneous group of people. Prosperity in this country is for everyone to take a bite out of that apple. And that is what I feel that we need to project. It's what we need to message. It's what we need to show, because our track record is proven. And their track record, really, if you look at who's running the country right now, a reality TV star that inherited a ton of money from his father, and
And
an
squandered it.
apartheid era immigrant who wants to go right back to the way things were in South Africa, where he grew up.
Yeah,
Right.
I think you're onto something in terms of messaging, and I think at the national level, Democrats need to figure that out and like pass it through, down the chain, because right now it feels like at a national level, well, we're just going to wait till it hurts the other folks, and we're going to. It feels like we're always on defense and just kind of and let some people, unfortunately, I don't think it really like they don't feel it until it does hit them personally. But I don't think that's a
Yeah.
strategy, right? Like if we're just waiting for that and saying, "Well, we're going to
Right.
open arms," well, what are we going to say with the open arms? And if we say have a message to say, that's going to be more effective, right? And so I'm gonna play a clip because from the AOC, the Bernie thing, this was pretty huge this week. Friday, Saturday, they were all over the place. Had one of the biggest turnouts for Bernie. Bernie ran in 2016. I supported Bernie in 2016, and before in the primaries. And then I was tired of. I was like, all right, Bernie, kind of like I don't really want to hear you in 2020, and so on and so forth, and like. But there's been this leadership vacuum that's just been empty, and there's Jeffries and Schumer, and I'm just like, well, what are they saying? It doesn't sound like anything. And there's been some people stepping up, but they stepped it up in a big way on Friday. So I'm gonna play a couple clips and let's see.
The country.
On stage, AOC wasted no time challenging not only Republicans, but her own party.
And this isn't just about Republicans. We need a Democratic Party that fights harder for us too.
Neither Sanders nor AOC spoke directly to Denver
And then I got one more for y'all.
Yeah.
specific issues like immigration enforcement and
Need a producer. If anyone
And
wants to
folks, we're still working
volunteer.
on the technology. We're not the best yet.
All right.
Is we will not allow America to become an oligarchy. This nation was built by working people. And we're not going to let a handful of billionaires run the government.
both leaders finishing off with a reminder to the people. The power is with them.
It's not Bernie. Not Bernie. I got bad news for you. It's you.
I want you to look at every level of office around you and support Democrats who actually fight, because those are the ones that can win against Republicans. We are going to get through this.
So a couple of things. I mean, you know, the hardworking billionaire, like oligarchy, local, getting involved. You know, the message is starting to, you know, somebody's got to say it, and they got to say it to a broad audience, right? And a lot of times there's been some Democrats saying this and some doing that and some doing that, and they all sound good, but like Republicans, when they have a message, I mean, it goes from the Trump to the whole Republican ecosystem, the whole conservative ecosystem. And another point you mentioned on earlier is like these people. If we sat down next to some Republicans and looked at their TikTok and Instagram with them, it's a whole different algorithm. Like they wouldn't even see the truth and things that we're saying. Fox News, same thing. If Fox News is in the military, playing on military TVs, like they're being indoctrinated, right? And so that is something that we actually have to fight as well. But these type of messages and these type of turnouts, these are the things that are going to break through. But Democrats have to figure out how to spread the message, and also, like I said, make that message simple so it applies to multiple, whether you're suburban, whether you're urban, whether you're rural, that those things are going to resonate. And that's just the way that I feel about that. And so
And I guarantee you those crowds aren't all Democrats. I guarantee you. I guarantee you the vast majority of those people are, I mean, it's probably a big split, right? Because it's just the energy of the moment. We're seeing folks like Elon Musk. We're going to get into this in our after portion with you, Woodson, but a clip of Elon Musk saying, "Oh, they basically want to kill me." And it's like you have forget that your previous life, the stuff you've been doing, but like it's this idea of folks being like, "You know what, dude, you're a piece of crap. You know, and we don't want anything to do with you, and you're actually harming people." So this idea of you know, I think of having strong principles of standing for all people, you know, wanting people to, you know, we as I said on the Statue of Liberty, we welcome, you know, the folks who want to yearning to live free. We take your huddled masses, all those things. That you're tired, you're poor, yeah, because those folks, you know, and we have helped build this country. I mean, my ancestors helped build this country for free for a quarter of a millennium. You know, for free. And then we had 12 years of Reconstruction, and then we had 100 years of legalized apartheid. So I am quite clear. And then you brought up the, you know, like post World War II and the GI Bill. Only 2% of black GI was able to tap into that. So even Social Security, we couldn't pay into Social Security until 1954. Because if you worked a servitude job or an equine job, which it's like basically like a maid, or if you're some sort of servant job, you couldn't even get Social Security. So all this is new, right? To a lot of folks, they want to pull it back to a point where we couldn't have access to those things, and I know some folks on the right, they may not understand that history, but they didn't have to, which is a privilege. When you don't have to understand that stuff, that's a privilege, right? And like that's why we're kind of at this impasse as a political party where we got to wake up to realize, you know what? I do believe, and I love that we pulled that clip of Bernie Sanders and be like, but where did he come out of? In 1984, 1988, during the Rainbow Coalition, right? He came out of that movement of this like multiracial, multicultural society. But sadly, at the time, the party chose to go to the more austerity route, right? The more Bill Clinton route. And like that's where we ended up going. So like we're on this pathway. And even Joe Biden, some of the things when he was president that he couldn't honestly attack because like some of those austerity and neoliberal tendencies, because he was on those bills. He was signing those things into law, you know, when he was a senator, right? So like this is the history, as we said. I think so. You said South Africa earlier, Woodson.
Yeah.
Like what South Africa went through to change from apartheid, they had to have two words. What was it? Truth and reconciliation. This country has a really hard problem with both of those words, truth and reconciliation, right? We haven't apologized. We haven't apologized for the genocide of the indigenous people of this land. We haven't apologized for slavery. We haven't apologized for legalized apartheid. We haven't apologized for nothing. So I don't know how we get to that next part where we say everybody deserves things, if a lot of people still don't believe in their hearts that you know, you want handouts. I'm like, no, I think again we should have the same resource. I believe our tax dollars should go to should be invested in us as people. They should be invested in our roads,
Yes.
our bridges, our police officers, our fire departments, our
Our
schools,
teachers.
our teachers, our healthcare. And if that's crazy, socialist,
Right.
lefty, then call me what you want. But guess what? I want you to live. I want you to have a long, healthy, joyful, bountiful life. And if that is too much for you, then hey, I don't know what else to tell you.
Sound a little bit like my church
That
service
was
today. I guess in Utah,
brilliant.
but yeah. Uh,
No, but okay. So right there with what you're saying is people are drawn to strength even when it's wrong.
Correct.
And we're seeing that.
Correct.
So I love what you've got to go with the people that are fighting for you. Go with the people that are strong. Borrow their courage. And to jump on to what you said, there is a part of me that's very resentful of this political class on the Democratic side, and that has, I feel, has squandered some opportunities from amazing new talent
Yeah.
because of people that didn't get out of the way.
It's my turn. Right. All that stuff.
All that. And I, there's an upcropping. We've got to build a deeper bench in the
Mhm.
Democratic Party, and I think it's there. I think it's diverse. I think it's coming, but we've got to let them get some oxygen. We've got to get some of these people out of Congress and out of Senate and bring, like, Ossoff gave one of the most
Oh yeah.
impassioned speeches I have ever heard.
That was great.
A few days ago,
Mm-hmm.
we need to get his name out.
mhm.
Warnock, I'm a huge Warnock
He's a
fan.
great one. Yep.
Chris Murphy,
Oh.
of course, Jasmine Crockett, Gretchen Whitmer, Big
Mm-hmm.
Gretch, Bakari Sellers. I know
Mm-hmm.
he was in the South Carolina politics. He's now, commentator and things, but he needs to get back in the game. That man is brilliant and he's a good
Mm-hmm.
guy.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, AOC, but Andy Bashar,
Mm-hmm.
Pete Buttigieg, then you've got Jeff Jackson, you've
Mm-hmm.
got, there is a House representative in Texas, young guy,
Oh,
James.
Tallarico.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That man needs to get
He
on the
ties
national
together in
stage.
such a way where he's like, it's not left versus right, it's top versus bottom. Oh, I love it. Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's the same thing of being like, what they did was what he said. He also said the only minority that's destroying this country is the billionaire class. I mean,
There
it's
you
like
go.
genius. It's genius, right?
Yeah,
Because
that's
it's like,
actually
it
great.
doesn't matter.
That's a great one.
It
But
doesn't matter
he's the
what your minority
unaffiliated
is.
whisperer.
Yeah.
He's that
Yeah.
unaffiliated whisperer. I'm getting touted for that kind of in my gerrymandered map, because when you look at me, it's very perplexing. The autopsy on Senate map 42 is still being analyzed. People voted for Trump. They voted for Stein. They voted for me. They voted for Tricia Coffin.
Oh, ugh. I'm mad she won still.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't either.
Like,
I don't
but I'm
either.
just
But
saying.
Mhm.
And this is a small part of like this microcosm,
Sure.
but we've got to fight to hold that. And there are other people that are that way. So we've got to talk to the whole spectrum. We've got to have these incredible rallies like what you showed video clips of. That cannot stop. We've got to talk to the true blue, hardworking people, and the people that were in the hardworking people in that went to the other side. We've got to really jump on that soapbox and work hard and message hard to hardworking people. And then these people in the middle that are going, but the people that I go to church with are saying this, and the people that my husband's working with are saying this, but I don't feel this way. But when I turn the channel, I get in, it turns into an argument or whatever. There's hundreds of thousands of those wives. And I'm not making excuses for any of them. I'm
I
just
mean,
saying,
like low key. No, like, I'm with
know
you.
they exist.
I'm with you. But I
They
think we
exist.
are low
And we
key
gotta
making some
get 'em
excuses
back.
for them because, like, I think about you said earlier, like the economy, like black people
talk
don't make
about
as much.
money.
Well, but the economy, but the economy is actually very amorphous. Depends on who's saying it, the context they're in. Are they on CNBC? Are they on CNN? Are they on Fox News? Or are they in your
Point.
backyard? The economy is completely amorphous, right?
Yeah.
It could be how much is in
Economy,
my
milk
wallet.
and eggs, gas, but
Yeah,
it's
milk
Wall
and eggs,
Street, S&P
it could be
500,
the basket, right? But what I'm saying is that like when it comes down to the economy, like I'm always a little bit perplexed. And we were on with Dr. Hardy, I said something to her. I said, we have to stop infantilizing white supremacy because if we have to understand there is a level of the like, there
Yes.
are people that actively believe that there should be a hierarchy in this country, and they are willing to.
You're right.
The book I was telling Ron last episode, "Dying of Whiteness," where Dr. Jonathan Metzl was talking to a gentleman in Tennessee who had like a air, he's the air tank, and he said, "Wouldn't you like to have health care?" He said, "I would, but I want no Mexican getting it." These are people that were willing to cut off their nose to spite your face. And but that's always been this way. It's called drain pool politics, right? Where they would rather
Yeah.
fill the pool with cement than let everybody else enjoy it. So until we can deal with that, until we can say we have to wrestle this again, this beast that has always been a part of this country, because this country's identity has been inherently anti-woman, inherently anti-indigenous, inherently anti-black. Like
Oh, yeah.
that's why we don't have things, because why don't we have why are our SNAP benefits and welfare, why are they so negative? White people are on them more than black people because black people are getting them. Why is education being defunded? Because black people could be educated. And it all going back to 1954 with Brown v. Board of Education. So again, and I'm not trying to throw a
Yeah.
lot of like history, but like we
No,
we
it's
have
the
to
truth.
we got to color it in. We can't just be like, oh, it's a blank slate because it's a new day, because there's people out there that still actively don't want me to exist. And I don't know how. I don't want my babies to exist. They see there's a guy that walks in my neighborhood. We live in a pretty nice neighborhood, and he walks around with a Confederate jacket on. Now, if the Confederacy was alive today, I would have the freedom to speak to you, Woodson. You would have the freedom to tell me about letters and numbers because you would be under punishment of death. My children could be sold off under me, right? So there's a level of like, there is a long tail that we have to deal with as a
Yeah.
society before we can say, oh, we just got to bring everybody in. Because as I said in the last episode too, the 92% and 80% that showed up for Kamala Harris and for Democrats, we don't got to get shot to know the lead is hot. We don't got to feel that sting to be like, oh, I don't want that to happen. But now, folks, and then something that I did, somebody said earlier, the idea of like, oh, they didn't vote for this. It's like, well, but they did vote for that. Again, like you're cool with this, but now all of a sudden, you're losing your job. And so like how like what, as you tell two black men, we have to embrace these people. And I know like you're saying you could be the bridge builder, but if they're not down with letting younger people, blacker people, Latino people, immigrants, queer people, differently abled people lead because they heard they're eating cats and dogs, or your kid goes to school as a boy and comes home a girl, whatever the hell that they hear. What is that middle ground? Like, and I've been hearing this, and the last piece I'm gonna add, I know I have these long windups. It was this idea I heard as a chair where they say, "Hey, we got to go after the unaffiliated." Here in Union County, it's true. There's more unaffiliated than
It
there are
is.
Republicans or Democrats. And all I said was this, because I knew I only had 2 years, or I knew I was starting 2 years, or whatever the case may be. And I knew I work a full-time job, got two little kids. My wife was running for countywide as well for school board across the entire. So we were a very busy political family. I would just say this for an unaffiliated voter, I don't know what that strategy is, because I know a 18-year-old black disabled woman who is unaffiliated, but I also know a extremely right wing, probably has a Confederate flag or a "Don't Tread on Me" flag in his house, who's 75 years old and is also unaffiliated. So when we talk about our Democratic time and how much we're going to use to try to turn out our base, how much of that time should be dedicated to an unaffiliated strategy, which in reality is so broad, so wide, and so honestly unnameable? How would you have that strategy?
The strategy is this, and this is just brutally real. How do we get 50% plus one?
Mm-hmm.
That's the game right now. We have got to do whatever we've got to do and talk to whoever we've got to talk to break 50% plus one locally, statewide, and Washington, D.C. End of story. And then have no moment of like reaching across and whatever. We got to go in with a plan and execute
And
and
deliver.
show people that we're here to help them. We're going to make their lives better. We're going to make things better.
That's
And
right.
then that's where then the rest will come. But it's what you're saying. If we could get our party to get out and vote, we wouldn't have to worry about the margins because
Well, I
we
think
have the
also too,
numbers.
well, and to that point of like getting our party out to vote, again, I think about the Democratic Party
Man.
of North Carolina, 46% are black, 60% are people of color. And something Cynthia Wallace from the New Rural Project taught me years ago when I
Oh
first
man, I love her.
when I first moved to North Carolina, first moved to Union County. She's amazing, but she was speaking. She said instead of asking people, especially in our community, right, where we're
Yeah,
higher chance of having multiple jobs, higher chance of
sure.
not being able to have a car or have access to things, right? Instead of saying why aren't you voting, which is very accusatory, instead of saying that, not saying you're saying that, but instead of saying why aren't you voting, because I've heard this a lot, right? Instead of saying why aren't you voting, say what's keeping you from voting. It changes the whole paradigm because if it's like, well, I mean, honestly, I'm working three jobs. Honestly, it's not working for me. And honestly, the democracy hasn't really worked for a lot of us people of color for a long time. Or, I don't have a car to get to the thing. Or I'm afraid because there's a guy with a gun on his hip at the local polling place. I mean, it could, it, the, I think that's a more honest conversation. And I think we can build on that rather than being like, if we could just, because all the if we could just in the world aren't going to get us nowhere.
Hand in hand. So I love the fact that you said that, not why, what's keeping you from voting? That goes right back to not saying I told you so, because the three of us know exactly what they voted for. We knew what was going to happen.
Right.
But instead of saying that of, man, you've been betrayed and we're not wacky. Tell me how you're feeling. Like, what are you hearing
But
right
do we need
now?
to audition our humanity for people? Like, do I need to like? I'm not crazy. I know I'm not crazy. Like, I don't need
I'm
to
not
like
crazy, but when
audition
you
myself for these people.
no, I don't consider it that at all. I consider I will lay my pride down and put it to the side if that's what it takes to open someone's mind up to having a real conversation and showing them that all of the crap they've heard or everything that people have told them about who we are and what we stand for and all of that stuff, that
Hmm.
it's just not true because I want to be judged by what I do rather than what I say.
That's
So
right.
if I have to say something for them to open up the door to
Hmm.
listen,
Hmm.
I don't have to be prideful, but I'm
Yeah.
but I'm not compromising my values.
Hmm.
I'm just trying to open up someone's ears and
Mm.
their mind just enough to let us show them, not tell them,
Sure.
show them. And sometimes it's just that little thing. And it kind of goes back to, I love what you just said. I actually wrote it down of not, hey, why didn't you vote? What kept you
Yeah.
from making that happen? That's what I'm talking about here. And
Hmm.
I love what you said. I'm going to start using that as a prime example of just having these conversations just for nothing else than to break down a barrier to make a connection. And if the connection isn't meant to be, trust me, they're going to say it in like the first three sentences,
Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
and I'm
Well,
done.
I guess, and then too, it's like
That's where I'm. Yeah,
no, no, that's perfect, and thank you for clarifying because I think it's just like yeah, but then it just goes to the time that we have on the clock, right? Like
and that,
it's like if you're going to use your time to try to get this person who voted for Trump maybe twice, maybe thrice, or the person that has never voted that actively believes in freedom, that actively says, you know what, I'm working jobs, but also I know I'm not down with removing Jackie Robinson from the military archives. I'm not down with it removing women. I'm not down with harming immigrants and picking up American citizens and sending them to El Salvador. Like these are people that would never even be down with that, but they just have never been reached out to. And I know that as a chair because there was times over the past 2 years where I did go to these communities. I went to the Latino community, the Black community. I'm like, hey, I'm the Democratic Party chair. And they're like, well, it's just you. Where's everybody else at? So there's a level of like, where's the party itself has to be saying those things coming to those people instead of being like, we're gonna run to the right because what's gonna happen is like this. I call it like the
no,
bad boyfriend, the bad boyfriend syndrome, right? Whereas, or basically, we're in an abusive relationship with the Republican Party, where they are harming us. Then we're like, oh no, we take them back, or then the Democratic Party itself says, you vote me in or you date me, and I'm going to spend the rest of my time trying to get those people over. I'm trying to get another woman, and you're like, hold on, pay attention to me. It's like, well, where you going to go? You don't go to somebody else, and now you're a captured vote because it's already booked in, and you're
yeah,
not fighting for the people that represent you. That's my point.
Um,
that's why we need to cover them all. We need to focus on what you're saying and send a small kind of special ops group to go and talk to the small margins. It would be foolish for us to all focus on the small margins. We need to focus on our own, turn out what we've got, and send kind of a small envoy, if you would, that's up for the challenge, because that's where you get beat up. That's where you come home just
But you represent those
full of
people, right?
scratches. And
Because you
I'm sorry.
represent, but you represent those people as a state senator. Like you represent those people that again would vote for you, but at the same time, you could probably build a bigger base where it gets for those Trump,
Absolutely.
Stein, Bradley. What you said? Trump, Stein, Bradley. Who was the last one in the
Gotham.
House? Gotham. That's right. Those Trump, Stein, Bradley, Gotham
But we're
voters.
going to
Like you
change
could
that one too this next go
right.
round.
No
Yeah, I
question.
would
No
love
question.
that.
Then we can expand that, and then guess what? Those voters can still come along. But guess what? You are building a wider, because again, as we said earlier, you only have so much time in a day, and we're running up
Right.
on time here. And again, I thank you for your time. But just as we expand that time, why don't we invest it in just actually expanding the folks that would vote for us anyway?
I think
They're going to be our loudest
think,
cheerleaders.
I think the message that you as the or a whoever the Democrat, the Union County or the county chair, they're going into a place. That message or the message that Woodson that you have. They need to go home, turn on the TV, go on social media, and echo. They need to hear that same thing echoing, like, oh, it needs to resonate, like, so
Right.
actually, like, and it doesn't need to conflict of like, well, they said this, and that's not really what they're saying. So there's a confusion there, and I think that and I want to go for the gold. I want 60%, right? And then if we end up with 55, and the only way to do that, to me, and I know like people say it's idealistic and it's naive because they say, oh, these people never vote. The only way we could do that is if we get new people in, and I know people who
That's right.
like were interested in candidates like Bernie, and there was people that were never into politics that are interested in Trump. So if we can waken that up, then we're golden. So well,
We got to be
maybe
strong, and we got to show that we're fighting, that we're
it's
fighting for them.
That's right.
yeah,
What's I know we've had you a little. I'm gonna give you one last question. I'm gonna let you go, my friend, because we were so grateful for your time
That's
to
what
have
it's
it.
about.
Our first state senator on the podcast. Oh my gosh, fame. So what is coming down the pike at the state house? Did folks need to be aware of? What is your next step and move within that? And yeah, it's kind of go from there.
Here's what's coming down. So we talked about constitutional carry. The Senate, we fought it with everything we had, but it passed in the Senate, taking DEI out of education. And I challenge you guys. When I speak, I don't say the three initials. I say
That's right.
diversity,
Mm-hmm.
equity, and inclusion.
That's
And it
right.
makes people pause. It desensitizes people when they use acronyms. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm challenging all of your viewers to always say the words. The other thing that's coming is just a straight up attack on elections,
Mm.
um, election integrity, who gets to vote. The SAVE Act is terrifying, especially for women
Yeah.
who marry and that their married name is different than their birth certificate name.
Mm.
So I am leading a coalition, not just in the state, but working with people nationally, that the whole real ID, if you go through the steps to get a real ID in North Carolina, you had to furnish your marriage certificate. You had to show if your name was changed with your birth certificate. You already furnished all of that information.
Right.
So
Right.
your real ID should be the only piece of paper that you need, but it is going to be, depending on how that goes, the most massive act of voter suppression outside of prior to equal rights and all of that being amended in the 1960s. And that is really scary, and we're looking at that as well. North Carolina is becoming, I call it the hold my beer state. Every time we think that there's some sense of normalcy somewhere, North Carolina rears its head like, hold my beer, we're gonna put this through. So there are things like that, but it's really school vouchers taken to a whole new level.
Mm.
our taxes paying for
Public
rich people's school.
safety, right? This whole public safety issue, where now we are the party of public safety, just in this constitutional carry argument, to take that back. Everybody deserves to feel safe, wherever in their neighborhood. That's not a rich or poor thing. That is just who we are as Americans. But yeah, this it's every equal and civil right culture war issue you can think of is coming down. Oh, and stripping the attorney general of all of his
Mm.
power
Yeah,
in North Carolina. They've already taken it from the governor. Now they're going to take it from the attorney general, and they're going to give election power to the state auditor because he's the highest ranking Republican right now in the Council of State.
Yeah.
So they've just switched all the election power to him. So those are the things that are happening now. And there'll be other red meat bills that come through, but those are the ones that are going to impact our daily lives that we need to stand up, shout out, not shut up about.
And I think they're going to be laying culture war things like landmines, and so we got to be able to have the
Totally.
messaging to just shift away from that. And the other thing you mentioned was voter suppression things coming down, and I think that's why it's important for us to have more than just that 50+1, because by then there's going to be so many people disenfranchised. And I don't think that we really know the magnitude of which that's taking place. And even in the state of gerrymandering is like, I mean, it's devastated North Carolina when I realized all that. So all those things are important. Thank you.
Gerrymander, North Carolina shows up first. I mean, it, like literally our state is the example of it for the world.
Yeah, I mean, if North Carolina wasn't gerrymandered, then I believe we would have the House more than likely. We would have the House right now. So
we would the Congress,
in
Congress, in the United States Congress. So
that's the truth.
So
we gotta fight. We gotta fight.
Thank you very much for coming on. I mean, I love the conversation that we had, that we're able to have this conversation. And like you said, you got some ideas, and I think that this is a great time to improve the strategy, improve the message, and I hope that we get to see you again. And I will be I will be campaigning for you more than likely whenever that comes around again. So
real quick, because Ram and I were talking earlier. So when is your next reelection? Because we were saying, how many years is it?
Okay, so for me, they shortened the North Carolina Senate terms of office, so it's 2 years. And I am now the #1 targeted race by Republicans in the entire state of North Carolina for 2026. They're coming at me with everything they've got. And we're going to hold them off. We knew we were going to be targeted. We didn't know we were going to be the #1 target, but we will be the biggest General Assembly race, and we're going to give it all. We're going to give it everything we have, and we're going to be just fine. And I'm not going to shut up about it.
That's right.
And that's why these courageous conversations need to happen, and people need to see it. They need to see that, oh my goodness, we've got people across the board fighting for people like us.
Right.
And I love it. I miss healthy debate and discourse, because that's the only way we're going to move forward, and that's how we're going to be heard. So you guys are champions, and I am so honored to be here. I hope I get invited back.
Thank you very much.
Of course you will. Folks, we've had State Senator Woodson Bradley. It's been an honor and a privilege, and I hope you come back as soon as possible.
I'm here. I'm in it.
All right.
See you later.
Thanks, Woodson.
Take
Have
care.
a good evening. Bye-bye. All right. Well, that was State Senator Woodson Bradley, folks, and a quite spirited and I think well-intentioned conversation. Great job, Ron, leading that.
Thank you. We definitely gotten better over this. Gotten better over the.
Hey, we're working at it, folks. We're trying to work at all the kinks, man. So it's all good. It's all good. And I think the one thing that we are good at is at least having the discussion, right? The flow may not go to the questions we've sent, but we're just talking as people, because that's what politics is people, and it's people powered, and it's people centered. And if you always care about the people and put them first, and they're your North Star, you will always be going the right direction. So I don't really worry about the technical things or the things that don't go the right way, or a flub a word, or people. I got allergies right now. I'm trying to keep it together. All right. Okay. So Ram, I did want to touch on a couple quick things. I know. Well, first I want to say, I think that they're trying to kill me. No. I do want to take back. I do want to correct something. Last episode, I said something about a group that was incorrect. I actually had thought that they were a part of another story that it broke about Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, and Benny Johnson, and I foolishly assumed that they were part of that, but they are still an extremist group, and some even say a hate group. But SPLC refer to them as that Southern Poverty Law Center, not just people. Let me just be very clear who might have said that. But I do want to clear that up, and I will be addressing that on my own platform on a later date. But I did want to clear that up for the auspices of the show, because it's important to our viewer base, listener base, that they can know they can always get clear and honest discord here on this page. So I
Yeah,
do want to clear that up. But and of course they've been on me doing their whole thing, but
it
that's their problem.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're a podcast. I know that some will try to say we're journalists. We're not. The bar is low in
Totally not.
this anti-DE world, but we're not journalists. We're just trying to have
We're just DEIs. There's
real
two DEIs on the call, man. That's all we are.
real conversations. We're sharing our opinions, reacting to the world around us. We don't want to be a source of misinformation or disinformation.
Not at all.
When we started this podcast, we said radical roots. Dig deep to reach higher. We're digging for the truth. I think misinformation and disinformation is probably one of the biggest threats to
no question
to the world. So I strive to ensure that we're definitely not spreading disinformation. That means you're doing it on purpose, but misinformation. So we want to keep it real with the audience, keep it 100, keep it a buck.
That's right.
And we just want to, a lot of what we say is rooted in our perspective, and we do the best to bring truth and context. So the podcast is growing. I don't know where it's going to take us, but I know I want it to grow with integrity and realness.
That's right.
The correction's been made, and we keep it moving.
Yep. That's right.
And I think
no matter how odious the group, no matter how odious the people, I think no one deserves to be lied on. And what's the point of lies when the truth is even so much more damning? No point. No point.
All right. So
all right.
A couple more topics tonight, real quick before we get off. We got Elon Musk. He's
elongated muskrat. Yes, tell us about him.
Well, you told me something that he said.
He said, well, folks, I think they basically want to kill me. This is what Elon Musk said on Sean Hannity's show. I don't know if folks have seen this clip where he was basically trying to garner sympathy from the Fox News base. And do you have that clip or not? Or if not, it's fine. We could just talk through it. We don't have to play the clip because it's made its rounds around social media of him basically stuttering his way through. And I thought the left was this empathetic group of people. But I thought this was because right now there is a real fervor against elongated muskrat. People are like, you know what? This guy is bad for business. We talked about it earlier with Woodson Bradley, Senator Woodson Bradley, and the idea that like people want a fighter against this nonstop deluge of torrent of money that is scaring a lot of politicians, specifically on the right, who have bought into all his, white replacement theory nonsense, because he said all these folks were being brought in to steal votes from good Americans, all this stuff, right? So that was what he purchased on what he sold. But I do think it's funny, the clip. Are you pulling it up or not?
I don't have the clip.
No worries. So, but there is an article that I did want to talk about. Do you have the article?
I do.
Okay.
Here we go.
So this article is called "They Basically Want to Kill Me." GOP efforts to turn Musk into a MAGA martyr are backfiring. And if you want to scroll down to the first by Amanda Marcotte. So this paragraph here I thought was very interesting. No one has. Okay, you're so far. Can you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, you want me to hear?
Oh my gosh! Yeah, go ahead. Read the second sentence, because that's the one, or the one.
No one has yearned to call himself a victim of cancel culture more than Elon Musk. In one sense, he succeeded beyond his wildest dreams, becoming a favorite villain of the left, the target of nonstop scorn and mockery. But he keeps failing at the second, equally crucial aspect of becoming an icon for self-pitying fascists, selling himself as a MAGA martyr. Even by low standards of people who love Donald Trump, Musk is too charmless, self-pitying, and privileged to make a compelling character in the endlessly idiotic drama of right-wing outrage at liberals who commit the high crime of not liking him.
That last sentence, that was the sentence that really turned me on to this whole article. Even by the low standards of people who love Donald Trump, Musk is too charmless, self-pitying, and privileged to make a compelling character in the endless idiotic drama of right-wing outrage at liberals who commit the high crime of not liking him. Oh, dude, that is like the best sentence I think I've ever heard in a long time. And that's a direct quote from Elon Musk, because they're basically trying to kill me. And I'll give it to him. I do believe that, and this is his long trope, that this idea that there's this left wing attempt to kill him and or to assassinate him. And I was reminded earlier of the idea of where he banned on Twitter Elon Jet. Do you remember that?
No.
There was that kid. There's a
Oh,
kid that had
oh yeah, yeah. They was
it
telling
was
where he was going. Yeah,
where he was going,
where
and
the
he
jet was
said
going.
that that was an assassination coordination. So he's always had from the left. He's always had this like conspiracy. He's always
Delusions
derived
of
into this
grandeur. And,
delusions
yeah.
of the left is trying to kill me. They're trying to come get me. And I'll give it to him. I have no doubt that there's people in this country that probably do want to kill him. I mean, in this age of Luigi Mangione, I'm not advocating for that at all, especially how folks may take things wrong. But any powerful person in this society has always had people that have been out. Obama got a bunch of death threats, right? And he wasn't even rich like Elon Musk. But powerful, rich people have always had folks looking to take him down. But I would probably stop doing things that made people want to kill me. I mean, that just sounds crazy, but I would probably stop being the person who he was. And again, like forget who he was in his past life. Just take the past couple months. The guy is having a bunch of tweens tweaking out on whatever ketamine, whatever nonsense that he's on, and he said he's on ketamine. Again, using his words that he's on ketamine. Having big balls in there, going through all of our social security numbers and grandma's pension and all that good stuff, and slashing jobs and saying we don't need air traffic controllers and FAA folks and social security admin, and we're going to shut it down. We're going to split the Department of Education. This is all through Doge and all his nonsense. And again, the thing that stuck out to me about they basically want to kill me is this mythological they, and the right uses this a lot. This mythological they. We kind of touched on this with Senator Bradley. This idea of like when they talk about safety and security, it's always they're eating the cats and dogs, right? They're gonna turn your son when he goes to school. He's gonna come home. He's gonna come home a girl. They're going to overuse not social security, welfare, the welfare queens. It's always this mythological they. But fascists always have an us versus them. There's always a target, right? So I think I think Senator Bradley put it well that he's an apartheid. I call him apartheid Clyde. This is a guy that is born of that, and you have to have these myths and lies to get the folks to believe in. What did Voltaire say? That famous quote: "If you get folks to believe absurdities, you can get them to commit atrocities." Again, if you can get folks to believe absurdities, you can get them to commit atrocities. So has been the playbook. And he said that God knows how many years ago, right? Hundreds of years ago. But that is what is actively has been a part of our American political system since I think we came to these shores.
Yeah, and I mean, you even see people in the cabinet ready to commit atrocities, or they are, and
Right.
It's a real threat right now.
But this whole victim mentality of it, the whole thing, but this is what the right always does, right? They want to harm people. They want to take things from people, take jobs, take money, put people in jail, concentration camps, slavery, whatever it is. But then, as they do those things, they like want to be like fucking applauded for it or like patted on the back, and folks are like, no. So that's how thin-skinned the right-wing movement is, and this is some of the things we're trying to needle with Senator Bradley. It's like these are people that still support that.
Yeah,
They still support this idea of like,
and these are the people in power, and they're bending the rules to support them, what they're trying to do. Meanwhile, pretend like Democrats or liberal, whatever it is, the left, the boogeyman is out to get them and kill them and everything. The left is not in power.
No.
We're not. It's system.
And this country has never been a left-wing country,
We're-
ever.
We're not
Ever.
systematically trying to. We can't do anything, right? Like where basically the things that they're doing are killing people, and just because somebody's not doing it with a gun.
Right.
In a violent way. We talked about this last week. Just because it's not something that's a mass shooting or a terrorist attack, they are literally killing thousands. And I think there was a report that was saying like over 500,000 people globally will die as a result of U.S. aid and these things. And these things have domino effect, right? When in the case of Luigi Mangione, he shot somebody, and that was a very violent way to kill somebody, and it's jarring. And then you see the numbers, and I'm not saying it justifies it, but you see the numbers and you put it into perspective. You're
He's
like,
looked at as a hero.
and you look at the how much people were dying from insurance denying claims and all of these things, and it's like, and it's actually like it blew my mind, right? Because you see tens of thousands of people as a result of being denied health care for 33, like some 33% of all
A
claims,
third, yep, a third of the
and
claims,
and
and they were the leader of all the healthcare companies of
mhm.
denying claims. So they were the
and
leader and had the highest amount.
And I feel
Goodness
like
gosh.
you might know this quote because I'm terrible with quotes, but like they talk about conservatives, they rather see everyone starve than to get one person who doesn't deserve it to have some food, right? Whereas
Which is crazy, like, because even the framing of that quote is like, everybody deserves food. Who doesn't deserve food? Name me a human on this planet that doesn't deserve food. So just the premise of even the conservatives, and it's like, I mean, and I know the quote you're talking about. I saw it actually in the video earlier today. Is a great quote. But like, this is from, dare I say, on its most purest form, this is them, being in an echo chamber. This is them getting high in their own supply. Since Trump came down that escalator June 16th, 2015, they felt like they could be as brash as they can, they can be as rude as they can be as disrespectful as they can. And the rest of us who are not their supporters, who vote for them and are affected, should be grateful that they're even in our presence. And that's why Elon Musk is in this moment. And one other thing he said to Sean Hannity in that hit, he said, I wrote it down here. He said, "I've never done anything harmful. I've never done anything harmful. I've what, bro?" Again, erase apartheid, erase, firing mass people at Twitter, erase, calling someone who's trying to save people in a sub, was it under those Thai soccer players, when they didn't want his help, then he calls them pedophiles,
Mhm.
right? This guy is a trash. He's been pushing the white replacement theory since we've been knowing him, and folks are like, he's a genius. Erase all that. I'm talking about just the past 2 months. I'm talking about chainsaw wielding Elon Musk, who's taken to the government saying, "I found 150 million cases of fraud," but yet not one person's gone to jail. If you found fraud
Look,
in this country, you go to jail if you've committed
and
fraud.
they would
No
be
one has gone to
they would
jail.
be putting who committed the fraud, because they would be putting the names out, right? They would be having they wouldn't even have congressional hearings. They'd be on their way to
They would be in jail.
El Salvador. So yeah, it's
Come
not, that's
on.
just what they say, and people eat it up. You got the mayor of Monroe eating this shit up like without a
Right.
second
And
thought.
again,
Uh,
right.
and so
And
it's
and this is mommy's good boy, because his mother was like, "Oh, Elon Musk he's a good boy," because his mother's crazy too. And then his father's
the
also
father's crazy.
came out. His father said, I don't know if you heard last week, he was like, "Elon Musk can't be racist, or my son can't be racist. We used to let him play with his servants who were black. We used to let him play with his servants who were black. That was us letting him not be racist,
Yeah,
bro."
and call people on Social Security, not on Social Security, who were receiving Social Security, who paid into it, parasites. Like
Parasite class, he
yeah,
says.
they'll call parasite class. So this is and he's again, he's a South African immigrant, so who doesn't understand America.
No.
He understands his idea of America, which
Hmm.
does not actually jive with really any point of America in terms of like freedom, whether you're white or black. I mean, I know that we went through segregation and slavery, but even still, the ideals that he has for America don't even match. Other than that, like other than the
Well,
only, yeah,
I do think this MAGA movement, or this whole moment, I do believe that their intentions are a lot closer to the framers
mm,
than we like to admit. They actually do actually actively believe what George Washington believes, because when all these folks signed the Declaration of Independence, this country was not for poor white men. This country was not for
That
white
is
women.
true. That is true.
This country was not for, definitely not us. Women were, the word woman isn't in the Constitution once, but where in there is 3/5 a person, right? So we have to be honest that like they do have a true this revisionist, not a revisionist, close to historically close idea of regression. That's why I call them regressives, right? So
Mhm.
this idea, these folks did not want working class. There was no working class. It was you are a dirt farmer, and there. I mean, we forget. I think you said this country wasn't built on that. Someone or Bernie Sanders said that, where he said that this country wasn't built on that. Like we forget, George Washington was one of the richest people in the country when he became president.
Hmm.
He himself was one of the richest, if not the richest. He was one of the, I mean, I'll check that. So I want to be accurate, but he was one of the richest people. I don't want the George Washingtonites out there to come get me. The one of the richest people in the country, right? So we have to stop doing this like, oh, it's all a bunch of always working class people that no, it wasn't. And there's always been a bunch of aristocrats. But but then he got mad. Then Elon got mad at this Tesla takedown, saying it was outside groups, blaming George Soros, who again is a Jewish man. As we talk about the white replacement theory, which basically says this cabal of Jewish people is trying to bring in immigrants to replace white people. So again, the line to anti-Semitism with folks like Elon Musk is quite short and straight. Um, but in reality, the Tesla takedown movement is as organic as can be. Folks are just popping up at Tesla dealerships with the handmade signs like "Screw this guy," "Dump Musk," screw. And but the thing is, he just can't take that feedback because he just that's the thing about narcissists, man. And I've always wondered in this moment. I think we all wondered this once the election was called, and we knew Elon Musk spent what $290 million to buy a presidency and to buy a country. But
Bargain
like
bin.
as we saw, bargain bin, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Go ahead.
pocket change.
Yeah.
But what would happen when two narcissists mate? like we always knew like what there has to be a moment of like explosion. And like what happens when these two, Trump and Musk, when there's only so much attention people can give, and eventually it's going to turn on one of them.
Yeah,
What's going to happen?
I do agree with you, and I think a lot of people expect that. As a matter of fact, I actually did have a conversation a couple months ago with Woodson specifically about that.
Okay.
Uh, and I mean, she believes that happened. I believe it'll happen, but I think when you talk about what's at risk, what's risk behind the scenes in terms of the money, whatever's being held over each other's head, there might be just too much to risk to actually have that type of fallout. And you can dream up some scenarios of why that may be, but I think that there's certain things that's going to keep them in line, but they're definitely going to be at times conflict between these two because narcissists are narcissists. I mean, I worked for one for quite a long time.
I think we all have.
And
I think to be like a CEO mindset, there's a
we
level
talked
of
about
like
that. We talked about
psychopathy, right? We did, right? So,
so
but you had another. But anyway, that's all I want to talk about was just this idea that they basically want to kill me. I think I'm gonna get that on a T-shirt. Like they basically want to kill me. Dash Elon Musk. But no, you had another thing. Did you want to touch on
I
too?
think we can probably in it for the night to talk the Department of Education. I mean, look,
Oh yeah,
public education is important to me.
yeah.
Before I had kids, my grandmother was a public school teacher for some 40
Oh, okay.
years and in
Wow.
Chicago public schools for 30 years.
Mm.
And she, even back then, there would be times where she would go and buy, supplies for her class out of her own pockets, on top of what small stipend they had. I remember going on a couple field trips with her and her class, and there'd be kids with no lunch money, and she would buy them lunch out of her pocket.
Wow.
And so,
Good woman. Good
public
woman.
school, but teachers are still going through that today. And this is 2025. They do very similar things. And like your grandmother, she scrubbed the floors. She's from Kentucky, so she's scrubbing floors for much of her earlier part of her life as well.
My grandma, she's from Alabama.
Yeah. So, very similar backgrounds in that way. Obviously, they couldn't vote. They went through a lot, a lot. Anyways, so yeah, public school is important to me, and to see, to be vicious against disabled kids, kids who are in poor communities, and really just the ones that need education the most to not only to survive. That's one of the opportunities that all kids should have. And to think that we're trying to take that away, and all of these states and local people and clapping like circus seals for the Department of Education, and there's a 5 to 12% of a budget in almost every single public school county now has to make that up, and they're either going to do that by or with a combination of firing teachers, firing staff, firing supporting staff, um, ending programs that help special education, ending programs in schools that are impoverished. We already know there's inequality across a school that's in a nice ritzy area with large property taxes versus a school that's in an area with smaller properties, low property taxes, right? And even in here in Union County, we see it from the west to the east, and then they tout their school scores and things like that. But when you actually look at how it's is across the two parts or multiple parts of the county, it's not necessarily a pretty picture. And so it's they're can you explain Trump's executive order a little bit about what it can and
Yeah,
won't do?
so like most things Trump and most things, dare I say, most things Republican, they do have they have the market cornered on spectacle. Most of his executive orders, I mean, an executive order itself is inherently not self-enforcing. There is no enforcement mechanism. There is no teeth behind a lot of these executive orders. Now, he can do certain things with executive orders, like moving funding around or being able to do things within the purview of the executive branch. But this executive order specifically, it doesn't shut down the Department of Education. It doesn't even do that. It doesn't say how we're gonna do it. It doesn't say what the plan is. It's basically like, and I tell folks, like, when you look at these Trump's executive orders, he could write an executive order that says, I discovered cold fusion.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean cold fusion. He can say, I weigh 145 pounds. He still, the way he looks, I think as a Joy Reid was talking to Don Lemon, the episode we were talking about, like, he can say that he's the most handsome man in the world, but he looks the way he does. That's what the executive order actively does. But on top of that, there's nothing in there about shutting down the Department of Education. This is so that his MAGA base can feel good about themselves, because you uppity Negroes with your education, we're about to let you all know, but not realizing it's not about that, right? Curriculum is not created or guided by the Department of Education. It's done at the state level, and dare I say at the county level, right? So this is not something that is done. But of course, if you don't know that, you listen to Trump and all these other folks. But what it does is it helps for folks who are, or kids who are disabled, as you said, with the idea, which is the IDEA. I'm not Linda McMahon, who didn't know what that was, for disability, for disabled children, but then also discrimination,
Hmm.
right? So for kids that go through discrimination in school, that's how they process it. There's a lot of civil rights attorneys that were fired that worked for the Department of Education. So if we don't know that of how those things tie together, that was always their goal, was that we can go back to segregated schools, one, but then also privatize schools, two.
Yeah. Well, I do think the executive orders they use that as a guise to basically a wrecking ball. So they'll
Right.
place an executive order, and then all these businesses and federal agencies act like they have to adhere to it because the
Right.
king said so, and they have to do it as quick as possible because the king said so. But and then we find out, 2 weeks later, 4 weeks later, that it was illegal. That's why they're hiring USAID people back. I mean,
Six
just
thousand
hiring
of them back.
all kinds of employees back and keeping things. But the
And
ball,
they're getting back pay.
the wrecking ball's there, so there's no efficiency there, right? That's gone. But they've accomplished the job of wrecking the USA. They've accomplished the job of affecting millions of people around the world. And the same with the Department of Education. Linda McMahon's going to act like that's her mandate and that's her job to. And a lot of these things are illegal. Like if they lose power, a lot of these people might actually be held accountable, and that's why I don't think they'll ever relinquish
Yeah, I don't
power.
think they're gonna leave.
Because if they were afraid of that, then they would not be doing things. But I do think Trump will throw them under the bus. He's the only one that's got immunity out
He's
of
gonna
all of them. So
honestly, we're gonna outlive Trump. That's the thing. And these people they're gonna ask for. I'd say he's probably already given them pardons. Like he's probably giving them long pardons, all these Pete Hegseth for future war crimes, and Linda McMahon for turning her eye to more sexual assault, like she did with, they call him with the WWE with her husband. Have you watched that
Vince
documentary?
McMahon. No. Mm-mm.
Oh
Part
my
of it.
gosh,
Part of it.
dude.
Yeah.
It's nuts, man. Like
I need to
she
finish
turned
it.
her back on so much. I mean, it's actually a really good documentary.
Mhm.
Anyway, but like, so this idea, I'm pretty sure he's already given preemptive pardons, and folks are, oh, Biden should have done that, and all this stuff.
That's
But like, Trump's gonna do it.
that's why he's given these people these roles, because he knows that they will do it, right? Cash Patel, uh, Bongino, Pete Hegseth,
Bongino.
yeah, like all of these people, they're the ones that they'll do it. He say jump, they say hi.
That
And
one guy said that.
if push comes to shove, Trump will throw them under the bus, and even these pardons that Biden didn't sign or whatever he's trying to rename.
Auto pen. He used an auto
Hey,
pen.
hey, there's a lot more people that are gonna be, as I saw somebody posted today. I can't wait for the U.S. version of the Nuremberg trials, because
Oh yeah, I saw that.
there might be some accountability, but that in order for that to happen, Democrats have to win something in 2026, and the institution has to still stand. Um, and I don't know if it will, but
Yeah, yeah.
we'll see.
Well, I say this, man. My final thought on it is just the idea that these institutions, and honestly, this country, is only as legitimate as we make it. You know, these laws are only as legitimate. I mean, we legitimize them as citizens, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I think folks are going to get to the point where a lot of black folks have always been, a lot of immigrant folks have always been, a lot of queer folks have always been, to realize these laws have always been meant to keep you from things.
Hmm.
This is why I didn't want to get into it with Woodson, because I know she said she's from a family of law enforcement and her husband's a law enforcement, and I didn't want to get that back and forth. But this is why, I mean, there's a level of me, I'm like, I don't call police. I call them law enforcement. Especially when we're talking about politics. I used to do, when I met Cynthia Wallace, we were doing this thing at the barbershop. There's some young brothers there. They were talking about, like, I said, who all got arrested, and all of us have raised our hand. I've been arrested. I've had guns drawn on me for no reason by police. Like
Me too.
guns put to the back of my head when I was in college.
Hmm.
But they are law enforcement. So when I say that to them specifically, I say, well, what does that mean? That means someone drafted a law in a suit and tie in those opulent rooms we talked about, a couple weeks ago. And these are the people that are enforcing that law,
Hmm.
or supposedly, right? So if you don't want to have a hand, I don't do politics. Well, guess what? There are people that are enforcing laws against your body, regardless if it's my body, my choice, regardless if it's Black Lives Matter, hands up, don't shoot, don't matter if it's, si se puede, it doesn't matter if it's, whatever. There are people that are enforcing laws that you have no hand in selecting who's creating those laws. So again, it's up to us, the people, to legitimize this stuff.
Hmm.
And the things, a lot of black folks, we've never really had faith in any of this stuff. We've had faith in each other, the human resolve. Um, and I would like to maybe hear from, a moderate type person like Woodson in the future, of like the idea of, because I know she's very much institutionalized. Hey, you kind of have to be, you're a politician. You have to believe in the thing that you're in, right? But to a degree, that lady we sat down with during uh, the precinct meeting today, I told her, I said, as a black man, before I'm the county chair, I've always known who my enemy is, which is America. America has always been my enemy. America has stopped my right to vote. America has stopped my, again, I tell her that story. And the white people breaking down, they can't hear that our grandparents suffered things. Like, yeah, but guess what? I love my grandparents. They were great. But they were not full citizens, which means they were not seen as full humans. And that was a law. That was a policy choice. You being able to be white is a policy decision. That is a law they put into place, right? Me being deemed black was a policy choice, right? Law enforcement, slave catchers, all of these things. And until we look at these systems of oppression, that we can't get there just trying to, you've been deceived.
Hmm.
This country's been deceived. This country's been deceived for over 400 years. This land has been deceived.
Yeah.
So we have to
The,
start being honest about the moment that we're in, to fight to get to the next step. Sorry.
Yeah,
That's
and
all I
the
got to say.
things, yeah, and the last thing I'll say is the things don't get as bad as we think they will. It's because of the people. it's going to be because of the people. So if this country does survive to continue democracy, it will be because the people got up and got in the way and stopped us from entering a full authoritarianism, total,
Totalitarianism,
thank you.
right? I got
It's
you.
getting
I
late,
got you,
man.
brother. I got you. Well, folks, please stand up and fight. And I know I always say this at the end. If you made it this far, please, shoot us something. We're gonna start trying to get merch. Start trying to get it. We need a producer. We need to start saying this stuff. We'll probably put some ads out about these things because Rom can't do it all. So hopefully, if you got some folks out there that are technically savvy and understand some of this stuff, and they want to hang out with us, for a couple hours twice a week, we could do the damn thing. So we're looking for that. We're trying to grow this thing. This thing is growing. Folks are excited for this show. And we need you to like, share, and subscribe, all the things, hit all the bells and whistles. Make sure you're following, make sure you're sharing, make sure you're telling folks about it. Engage with us. Send us comments, send us questions when we have guests on or when we don't have guests on. So this show is a very special part of my life. I enjoy talking to my friend Ron. He's a smart, thoughtful, strong leader in our community, and he's a great friend who has a very insightful look to the future. And I just want to keep this going as long as possible because this is needed. This is what you're not going to get on MSNBC. We're not just giving the same regurgitated commentary from 6 a.m. with Morning Joe to after at 11 p.m. with Lawrence O'Donnell. We're going to give you honest perspective from the vision and lens of Black and brown people and why it's important to us. And we're not going to take. I mean, you saw with Woodson. We're not going to take no. Oh, okay, that's the line. Okay, how does this impact Black people? How does this impact young people? How does this impact Latino people? How does this impact queer people? How does this impact? Because we got to start having those real conversations.
Yeah.
Because those empty platitudes aren't going to get us nowhere. What's going to get us? Right where we are.
Yep.
So, folks, thanks for listening in to the Radical Roots podcast, where we dig deep to reach high. And of course, always progress through action. I'm your co-host, Peyron Baxter.
I'm your co-host, Rom Sandoval. And thank you for those kind words.
Of course, brother. Of course, brother. And we will see you next time.
All right. Take care, everyone.